Hi YouTubers, this is Gil. Now in this video I'm gonna be re-showing you all my entire cassette collection that I have here. I don't even know if I made any videos doing this, but I know I have done a little bit of it. So this is my cassette collection that I made, that I recorded throughout my entire life. Well, starting from 1981 until this whole collection covers up until about 92, I think. 93. Well, it's actually more like 95. It covers until 1995. From 1981 to 1995, it all covers. So, I mean, in my collection, this is everything that I got in my cassette collection here. So, I mean, like these are Sony cassettes, like the examples of what I have. Everything, all of these cassettes I recorded like off the radio, and it's so much miscellaneous things, like a lot of voices. I have a ton of voices, you know, and then I made a bunch of song cassettes, like recording off the radio. This one, for an example, I think this one is from the 80s, like I think 84, I think this one. And then these are the titles of all the songs on each individual cassette. And then there's like that 1984 breakdance, or it was like I have this uploaded on YouTube, I believe. And then it's like a breakdancing cassette, or well, like I don't know what they call it, a mix. It's a mix. And then, you know, these are Memorexes. And then, you know, like most of these, like the better cassettes that supposedly that I call, they recorded off the radio, like music off the radio, or I recorded like records or something. But it's like most of these good ones, these good cassettes that I called, they're off the radio recorded stuff, you know. And then there's like, well, things like this, cassettes like this is gonna have mostly junk recordings, like voices, all of my voices in my blogs in the early 80s. And then this is Memorexes, that new wave style. And then I actually made, this is a tape I made for the car. Like, this was my very first song cassette that I ever made for the car. And then I have this radio songs. Like everything, like a lot of this I recorded off the radio, you know. And then even this is like from 91, 92. Like, and then, you know, like this is examples of what's gonna be in them. It's mostly like off the radio, you know, like mixed songs, relaxing music, disco music, you know. And then over here, these are older. This is like from like Mexico. I recorded this in Mexico when I was living in Mexico. This is like Mexican music, you know, like from Mexico when I was in Guadalajara. I recorded off the radio there. I remember when I was doing that. And then these are the older stuff. This one has like you know, my voices, you know. If you loved my videos, you would love this tape. You would love this collection. You would love to have this collection here, or you would love to hear it anyway. I mean, all my voices and stuff. This is like more voices and a lot of junk recordings. This one, well, this is like that is just examples, you know. Hang on. So it's all examples, and then, you know, these are all my TDKs, you know. Shit. I remember all this. I made a lot of off the radio recorded stuff, you know. Everything like in the 80s, you know. This is all like mostly like middle 80s and early 80s. But like some of these, like a lot of off the radio recorded stuff, a lot. I mean, I have a ton of that stuff here. I have a ton of that. And then of course, you know, remember the, you know, like the freestyle music, and remember all the off the radio and stuff. Yeah, I had my days, you know. I loved my days. And then, you know, like, and then more cassettes, you know, off the radio recorded stuff. And then of course, you know, I have in my collection of cassettes. I have still other miscellaneous things, you know, a lot of junk stuff, junk recordings. And then, now these are the ultra old cassettes. These are the ones that I had since I was like 10 years old. Voices and music and junk recordings. But all of these will be gems because they're going to all have my voices and stuff, you know. Then I used this tape recorder to record some of that stuff. And over here, this is more miscellaneous cassettes, you know. I have like some of these TDKs and, you know, like miscellaneous things, or off the radio, country. I mean, over here was off the radio. I mean, miscellaneous cassettes, you know, like this one, for example. That's from the radio, off the radio. And then over here is all officially my junk recordings. This is like all of my voices and my blogs. Going in the middle 80s, early 80s to the middle 80s, basically. All my, like, me talking, my voices, you know, a lot of voices. And then, you know, over here. Then here is where I have, like, some of the newer stuff, like from the mid-90s. That's from the mid-90s. Like a lot of this is from the mid-90s. And that's kind of like the mid-90s to the late 90s. That's kind of like officially when I stopped using cassettes. But I mean, I was going up to the mid-90s. Like that's when I stopped kind of like recording on cassettes, and I just started recording mostly like cassettes for the car, like tapes for the car, you know. So I stopped collecting cassettes and recording cassettes more like in the mid-90s. But I was still using cassettes, but it was not until officially like 2001, I believe. I think 2001, or it was 2000, when I officially stopped using cassettes. And that's when I got my very first CD recorder. And officially, that's when it officially all ended, the use of cassettes. And I had not used cassettes since my very first CD recorder. And that was at the ending of 2000. Yeah, imagine that, you know, like I was using cassettes until the very first day that I got my hands on a CD recorder. Then that was it. I stopped using cassettes totally. Like I made an abrupt stop of using cassettes. So I mean that's my whole story here. But apparently I still have all my collection, and a lot of this is off the radio recorded stuff, and it'd be really interesting for many of you to actually scan through all that. I mean, I tell you, I mean, I have a lot of gems in here, you know. So, and then what's unique about all this is I have all this recorded on MP3. I spent like several weeks or even a couple of months or so putting everything on MP3. So, and here it is. I mean, this is it right here. My entire collection on MP3. It takes about 30 gigs, or more like 27, 28 gigs. So I have it all in here. Everything. My entire 500 cassette collection, including like this one right here. I mean, like I have pictures of my cassettes. I took a picture of each individual cassette, showing what's gonna be in them. So that's like my cassette collection. And then over here, like I numbered them. So I recorded each individual cassette on MP3. So if I would click, let's say number 8, it's gonna have 3 files for the most part. Each folder is gonna have mostly 3 files, because like each folder represents one cassette, and in that cassette it's gonna have 2 sides, side 1 and side 2, and each file is gonna have either 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or 60 minutes. But for the most part, it's 30 and 60, depending on the length of the cassette. and each of these folders is gonna have a picture of that cassette. So like this one, for an example, and then of course, like all of these cassettes, I wrote down what I recorded on them and the date. Usually I have the date on them, and then you know, these files, each of these files is gonna be like, is gonna represent one side of each cassette. Like this one is like this is a 30-minute file, so that's one side, everything, and it's mostly junk recordings. I'm going to do another example. Here's another example of one of those, that cassette that came out of this box. See, like this. I have voices, you see it, voices. And there's like a lot of my blogs and stuff. A lot of my blogs in the middle 80s. I mean, like in the blogs of the middle 80s. I mean, and then of course I have, because that's just one example of what I have in my collection. And then I have the ultra old cassettes, and then I have a picture for each of these parts of the collection, you know. And then, you know, let's see, and then there's like this picture right here for me. Yeah, I have a picture of each part of my collection, and then I recorded each and every one of these cassettes onto MP3. So, and then this is the MP3 of all the cassettes in this one, right? For that example. This is the example. I mean, it's gonna have yeah, this is an example of one cassette that's in this, and then of course the recordings are over here. So that's that. I mean, that's that part. Then I have the 90s, the middle 90s. All the stuff I recorded in the middle 90s, I have it all over here. And then, you know, like I say, the picture of each individual cassette, and then the contents, the music or whatever that I have on it. And then I have my, you know, like say this, let me see, pictures. So this is how I do my collection here. This is what I have in my whole collection here. I mean, it's like a memory thing, you know. And apparently, like some of these cassettes, I did skip recording some of them because they had albums or music or just albums that I already have on CD, so I didn't bother to record some of these cassettes. So, I mean, that's how some of them are skipped, apparently. And then of course, this is the big one right here. This is the big case. This is the one that has my entire, this is where all my music is at, like off the radio and stuff, because I only use the good ones, the better cassettes for the music, while I used this is an example, you know, like of what's on these, you know. And then, you know, that's how my collection look. I usually don't even look into the cassettes, but I just like, I don't even look into the cassettes. I don't even do cassette. I just listen to the MP3s, or I just listen to the music. But the MP3s, though, I mean, this is an example, you know. See, like this, it has all this music, you know, like a lot of music. A ton of it, like from the 80s, you know, a lot of gems that will be in this big collection here. And then, of course, a straining iron collection. Yeah, and then of course, everything here, my entire collection I recorded onto MP3. I recorded all this onto MP3. And there's like a lot of voices, you know. And that gets pretty interesting. So, I mean, this is gonna wrap it up for this video. So I hope you liked my collection, you know. It's I mean, that's a pretty cool collection because I recorded everything. I mean, I feel like the longer I have these, the bigger the gem they become, because like, especially like the voices, because I haven't even actually went through my recordings lately, but I know I did a lot of blogging in those tapes. I did a bunch of it, a lot of it, you know, during the, like, starting, like, dating back to 1981. And I did a lot of blogging on these junk recording cassettes, you know. Did a lot of blogging in those. So, I mean, I haven't really looked into them, you know, and I should, because it's interesting to see the things that I had to say back in the early 80s, you know. I mean, it's really cool. So I tell you, so that wraps it up for my video of my cool collection of tapes that has all kinds of interesting things in them, you know, like, I tell you.